For years, I was kind of funneled into landscaping rules that I thought you just had to follow. But after 47 years as a landscape professional, I've learned that a lot of those rules don't improve your landscape. They kind of hold it back. Today, I am walking through my own property to show you 7 landscaping rules that I think you should completely ignore. We can expand the usefulness of the landscape by making the front yards useful and important, and more than just to get to the front door, which is something that most of us used to believe and probably designed in that way. Let's get people in and out of their car to the front door and then into the backyard where all the action happens. The walk that we have here in this space has benches and is expanded almost into like a courtyard. And I like that idea of having some way of being a part of the neighborhood. You can sit and watch people as they come by. And the exposure here, although that sun is coming right into my eyes right now at 7:30 in the morning, at certain times it's the perfect exposure and better than other parts of your landscape. We've got an exposure here that we should take advantage of. There's a lot of other ways to expand the usefulness of your front landscapes, and one that we do here in a major way is to produce edible food. You can do it in ways that you hardly even notice. To my right is little ragu. They're begging you to use it in your spaghetti sauce. This is a dwarf bay leaf. Really, really useful because bay trees, Laurus nobilis, get big, and soon you're gonna have to be hacking at them to keep them, how you want them. Here we've got them planted on both sides of me, kind of an informal screen. The little ragu are right under a Washington navel orange. To my left, in the center planting, where we have these spectacular cobalt blue pots, we have dwarf citrus, 2 lemons, dwarf blood orange. We're producing edible plants, we've got benches, we've got a useful space here. Once I stopped treating front yards like just a space to just walk through, then I started questioning another assumption. Why does our main outdoor living space have to be behind the house? A lot of times people say to me, I would never use anything in the front yard. I would never sit there. I have no reason to go out there. Don't put anything because we want to put all of our resources into the back. My point is, when I'm trying to encourage them that backyards don't have to be in the back, is that you're missing out on a special exposure that's different than what you have in the back that might be better for some occasions and some times of the year, sometimes of the day. A real key here is, instead of putting the front door at the front of the house, we have the front door over here. And that allows for us to do a lot of interesting things with fencing and make this whole thing essentially a backyard. Chip can walk all the way around the house. We came up with a wall that gets as close as possible to the street, allowed by county ordinance, then allows for a courtyard in the front, which is actually functions as a backyard courtyard. And normally the fence would just end at the house and you'd leave the garage open and the driveway open. We extended the fence all the way to the property line. It's really the key to the whole design of this landscape, this wall in the front that makes the whole area the backyard. Wherever those outdoor spaces are located, there's something that determines how we experience all of them, and that is how and the way we move between them. Many think that paths are just for getting from A to B, one place to another. Or they think too creatively, hey, paths, let's take you around the world and back before we get to where we're headed. Both of those can be problems. I like a style that's direct and allows the garden to be a little bit interactive, so it takes you through the garden, but directly. This front area here of our house is a reflection of that. It allows you to experience the front landscape and go through the landscape and look at some of the interesting features. And I think it's obvious by following the design that you want to get to that front gate, and you're able to go there very directly, but still with a lot of planting along the way and a lot of interesting things to look at. Paths don't shape a landscape on their own. The placement of your plants can completely change the look and feel and the upkeep of your landscape, and here's how. Plants are needed up against the house. Designs kind of start with that assumption. That's usually called foundation planting. You can do some sensible foundation planting that doesn't overtake the house over time. In this house, I really wanted to be able to appreciate what I think is a really special architectural design. I didn't like the idea of obscuring the house. In today's world, lots of houses are really attractive, so we don't need foundation plant to hide them. Instead of a crawl space, we have a walking space under the house with all the infrastructure of the house under there. Easy to add things, easy to work on things. I don't want that to get wet down there. Many of you across the country have basements that moisture is a problem with. I'm not applying any water up against the house because I have no plants. We use two types of rock. One's just a 4x8-inch river rock, and then the other is a Mexican cobble. That's the treatment that we used around almost all the house. The one exception being the master bathroom. We have windows that you can't see through, but at night with the light on, you could possibly see in a little bit. So I wanted something fast-growing, dense, that would block that. And I wanted to rile up all you viewers. So what I did is I planted a well-behaved clumping variety of bamboo. That's the only place in the whole house that I have plants up against the house. Once we stopped jamming plants right up against the house, I started to notice how much potential is in the spaces beside the house and a little bit away from the house. So many think, and it's easy to accept, that side yards are for storage and dog runs. And you don't think of expanding side yards into main parts of your landscape. But here we are. This is essentially a side yard. What we did when we sited the house is we moved it over as far as we could on the lot to one direction. And we created two side yards, one fairly narrow and one wide for a side yard. Then we sited the fence in a way that allows for the side yard to be really part of the back landscape. Traditionally, you would enter from the street and go straight on into the house with a very direct walk. And we, in our attempt to use the side yard efficiently as something more than a dog run and a storage, we made it so that the entry does not go straight into the house. The entry comes into the side yard. And then we opened up this space for a lot of other things to go on here, like an arbor and a lap pool. Transforming a side yard taught me something even bigger. You don't need a large property to create a complementary and satisfying outdoor space, and we'll prove it to you here in this video. We can't do mystery and surprise in small residential gardens because there's no room for mystery and surprise. Well, I'm going to offer it as a challenge. I think it's a great thing to always keep in mind as you design your landscape. Try to incorporate some mystery and surprise where you don't see everything with one perspective or one view. In this backyard, I have this interesting bamboo fence which gives a little mystery. You're going to want to see what's behind it. Well, I'm not going to show you because there's nothing there right now, but we are planning an onsen, like a mineral spring bath that a lot of people use in Japan. So that gives a little bit of mystery. The other area of mystery in this landscape is when you're in the front yard and you're walking to the front gate that lets you into the house. You get a sense that there's something going on back there, and so you have this sense of mystery and surprise. You want to get through that gate so you can walk into the landscape. And you can figure out ways of doing it in your own landscape. You can do it with plantings. You can even do it with hedges, ways that you arrange the spaces and the walkways so that you're kind of led along a path that opens up into a new vista. Creating that sense of discovery also depends on planting, which brings me to one of the biggest misconceptions about designing and plant selection. So the next thing that I've come to not agree with is that xeriscaping or drought-tolerant landscaping means landscaping with lots of rocks and cactus and dry and arid looking. I think the opposite. I think we can make xeriscaping and dry landscaping exciting. We have plants here that are water efficient, possibly with the exception of citrus, but even the citrus need just deep watering, very infrequent. One of the things really making that a reality is the way we water it. So in this case, we water it with drip irrigation. When I first planted it in the summer, we were watering 3 times a week. We went to once a week this year because it's its second year. As we get into all of it being in and established, I think I can do once a week watering and drip irrigation where we're watering just around the plant and is soaking in. We're doing deep watering so we get those roots to go down and take advantage of moisture all around. We're saving energy by shading key parts of the house, the western and the southern exposures, but we're also making spaces that you can sit in and walk through. So it doesn't look like xeriscape and drought tolerant, and yet it is, and it's useful. So these aren't really design principles. They're assumptions about what a yard is supposed to be. Another assumption I often hear is that improving your landscape has to cost a fortune. That's absolutely false. This video on the screen will give you landscape upgrades for less than $100. I'll see you there.